There's a difference between someone who can shoot and a shooter. A good amount of players can shoot a pretty high percentage from three, but it's less often someone steps on the court and everyone goes, yo, he's a shooter. And these players hunt their shots. They shoot with the confidence of a shooter, and they make sure they get their shots off. And time in and time out, these players are going to find themselves on a team. Obviously, you need a broad skill set, but being a cold-blooded shooter is hard to pass up as a coach. So to me, there are three pillars to being a real shooter. Number one, finding or getting open for your shots and getting them off. Number two is actually making those shots. And then number three is the psychology necessary to stay as consistent as possible and get back on track when you don't. And we'll go through all three because every single one of these is needed. If you're interested in taking your shooting training to a different level, make sure to check out the Ultimate Shooting Program. Link will be in the description. So there's something about shooters and just always being at the right spot at the right time. Because of that, they seem to find open shots over and over and over again. Part of this is that they know how to take advantage of their opportunities or situations that are gold mines for open shots. For instance, in transition, they're making sure not to lose this opportunity where the defense is often in the midst of chaos and not able to match up quickly. So they're the first ones up the court, finding an open spot, but also beating the pass to the spot so they have time to prepare and shoot a more in control, comfortable shot. Number two, they know that setting screens for teammates is one of the easiest ways to find open looks. If defenders will miscommunicate and leave somebody like Steph open, they'll definitely do it for you at times. Because if you set a really good screen, defenders often panic and jump out at your teammate, and if you're then able to find open space, you'll get a few shots per game at least. Offensive rebound kickouts is another one that's just not looked for enough. When your teammate gets an offensive rebound, very often your defender has already turned and either crashed the boards and leaked out or is just chilling. So get to open space and get an easy shot. Relocations are easy as well. If you're driving, make a pass. Typically your defender is going to forget about you even for a split second. So finding a space on the three-point line for the shot is again going to be open a lot of the time. And lastly, be conscious of when a teammate drives and engages your defender. If your teammate's driving your way and your defender goes towards them like a magnet, chances are you can separate from them and find open space to shoot. And speaking of this, you're constantly looking to do a few things. Number one, it's like a rubber band that you're always trying to stretch from your defender. Like imagine one side here and one side here. The goal is to stretch it as far as you can to create as much space as possible and get the furthest possible closeouts. A very common example here is when you're in the corner on a pick and roll situation, and as the ball handler comes off, you're lifting up a bit to create as much space as possible from this tag defender, so pulling that rubber band. And then from your own teammates on the perimeter too. You know the whole COVID 6 feet away from people thing? Yeah, you're trying to socially distance yourself from your teammate. Why? Because if you're too close, one defender can guard two players much easier, and the spacing just isn't there. Unless you go to a full-out handoff or pitch like this, but otherwise, keep your space. Like if they drive this way, space baseline to match their momentum and create this space. And then if they don't have the ball and you see a teammate coming towards you, well, you probably want to clear out from them as well. But you also have to make sure you're in a place where one, your teammate can see you open, and two, they can actually deliver the pass. Like here, Jordan's open, but it's kind of a fake open because Zion can't really get it to him here. So he bolts corner to make it an easier pass. And the amount of times I see players say, bro, I was so open, and they were, but in a place that was completely out of their teammate's view is crazy. Not everyone has a Chris Paul or Milos Teodosic on their team to find them with the eyes in the back of their head. So getting to a place where you're more obvious to the ball handler is vital most times. So maybe this is a time where you do close space to your teammate at times, like you see Ray do here. Then once you're open, it's about being ready. Being in at least somewhat of an athletic position, hands prepared, and body language screaming, swing me the rock, I'm gonna knock it down. Because while of course this helps you knock down shots and get them off quicker from a technical standpoint, it one, also makes it more likely for a teammate to pass it to you if you look eager and confident, and two, helps you as the shooter develop some confidence and some assertiveness before the shot. It's almost like you're powering up your confidence. Moving on a bit, shooters also must be able to attack hard closeouts to keep defenses honest. Once you make a couple and you have a shooter scouting report, closeouts will end up looking a bit more like this. And if you're able to attack these to get to mid-range space, downhill to the basket, or even separate for another three, well, the defense can't close out that hard anymore. And also, I think it's important to realize that especially at higher levels like college and pro, you'll rarely be fully open. These butt naked open shots will happen, but even ones with a light contest have to be comfortable. So the best shooters don't need to get fully open every time, but they've gotten comfortable shooting with at least a light contest, which leads us into part 2, making shots. Okay, so I know you're probably expecting me to give you the perfect shooting form to make every shot, and this just isn't possible. Everyone's going to have a different ideal form. I mean, just notice how all these players shoot differently, so I don't want you overthinking this. So what I will do though is list off some qualities that every shooter should have down and can be trained for, whether it's in our ultimate shooting program or just trying this stuff out. If you get all these down, you'll see big results. So first off, you got to be comfortable with every footwork. Different types of hops, 1-2s both ways, moving backwards, everything. You never know what the game's going to require of you, and if you're only comfortable with a few different staple footworks, you'll find yourself taking a bit longer than needed, and even sometimes passing up shots because you weren't comfortable with how you got into the shot. And this includes some kind of imperfect footworks, where maybe your feet are slightly uneven or not perfectly set. Because my opinion is always this: get good at finding perfect. So for instance, the ideal go-to footwork, but also prepare for the imperfect, which will happen, especially as you get more and more shots. And this goes for being able to drift or fade on shots too. As a high-level shooter, if you can only knock down shots shooting straight up and down, well, you're probably actually not a high-level shooter. You're going to be limited. I'm not saying you got to go practice and shoot Kobe's fadeaways from 3, but watch these slight drifts from these guys and how it helps them continue their separation from their defender, flow easier into their shot, and actually spend a bit less energy since they don't have to completely decelerate themselves before the shot. Next, contrary to what many outdated philosophies will say, the best shooters use the drop of the ball very well to not only generate power, but rhythm for their shot. This helps them line up the movement of their shot or upper body with the jump and mimics the natural counter movement of a jump. This drop could even be super small, but 99.9% of the time it's there. And for these players, it's usually just the right amount. Similarly, every great shooter has an amazing timing on their shot that makes it very fluid, effortless, and quick. Like here, he's able to drop the ball as he's catching it, hopping in the air, and then starts that upward momentum right as his second foot hits, which allows him to time up that jump perfectly with the upward momentum of the ball. This timing is going to be a bit different on every shot and different for everyone's individual form, but effortless timing should be a focus in every shooter's training. But as we know, sometimes the rhythm may not be perfect, maybe you pump faked or came to a weird stop, and you got to be able to recreate rhythm like you see here. Also, the best shooters are able to shoot off bad passes, because if LeBron gives high passes sometimes, you better expect your teammates too. It's many times not picture perfect, so it's absolutely worth implementing bad passes into your shooting work daily. And even more simply, they're able to turn lateral momentum from a catch from the side into upwards momentum into their shot. Most times when we practice shooting, it's catching it from the front, which makes it much easier. And honestly, it's a pretty different shot. These players are all really good at catching it from anywhere, but especially from the side. And whether it's on catches like this or in more exaggerated cases, they're able to swivel their head quickly to find and lock in on the basket. If you're still finding the rim later in your shot, it makes it much tougher to knock it down. And lastly, mentality, which in all honesty is a whole video in itself. And I used to think it was BS when people told me that shooting was such a mental thing, but I've learned that it's no exaggeration to say that psychology is the primary determinant of shooting success. Like, you can have the best mechanics in the world, but if you lose confidence every time you miss, you're going to be a pretty bad shooter. And I know people with funky shots who are just really good at putting the ball on the rim, primarily because they shoot the ball so confidently. They just let it fly assertively and without overthinking every little thing. So here's some psychological tools every shooter needs. Number one is being able to create your own confidence, even in down periods. This can even be things like asking for the ball passionately. It sounds super simple, but it low-key takes a ton of confidence to do, because if you do it and miss, it can feel pretty deflating and embarrassing. But it also helps will up confidence for your shot because you're assertive and hungry for it. Because real shooters are the ones who can make tough shots when they're down. It's much easier to make shots when your team's rolling and you have a little cushion, but if you can pull off things like this Stojakovic clip, that's a real shooter. And this takes being able to isolate yourself from the fear of missing and shoot to make it, not to miss it. This takes working on shooting under pressure day in and day out, as well as maintaining belief in yourself even when things are a bit dark for you and your team. Number two is being able to enter the flow state or the zone consistently. Flow state is basically that mental state where you're not thinking about anything, you're just hooping. When this happens, your mind gets out of the way, you just let go, and your preparation takes over. Think, yes, the Klay Thompson 37 1/4 performance type thing, but also when role players come in and have an amazing game, or when you just feel like everything is rolling even without scoring a crazy amount. Being able to enter this consistently, and I have a video on how to do so, automatically boosts your shooting ability because you're often in the right mindset to make more shots. Simple as that. Third is being able to shoot the right shots. The best shooters are aggressive enough with their shot selection that they're not passing up too many shots they could make, but also knowing what shots to shoot to maximize their effectiveness. If you're able to find that balance, you'll probably be in a pretty good place. And finally, although this list could go on for a long time, is being able to detach yourself from making or missing shots, or a good game or a bad game. In other words, putting in perspective that even if you miss a shot, it's not the end of the world, you're not a bad shooter just because you missed a shot. And if you make a few in a row, that it's not going to go on like that forever either. So staying even keel throughout the best and the worst games is vital. As always, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you want to train your shooting in a unique way that you'll probably see nowhere else, make sure to check out the Ultimate Shooting Program. Links in the description.